In this video, let's take a closer look at some of the blocks you can use to create programs in Blockly. Here, we will be covering the blocks in the controls, math, and logic categories. Starting with the controls, we have the delay in milliseconds block. This block pauses the program for a certain number of milliseconds. 1,000 milliseconds equals 1 second. You will need a number block to specify the delay time. The code displayed here blinks an LED on port 1 so that it stays on for 1 second. Next for the controls is the if-do block. An if statement checks to see if a certain condition is true. If it is true, the code in the do section is run. Otherwise, the blocks are skipped. This code checks to see if a sensor on port 1 has a reading greater than 200. If so, it turns on an LED. An if block can have a second section added that runs if the condition was false. To do this, click the blue plus button and drag the else block into the if. Now the blocks in the do section will run if the statement is true, and the blocks in the else section will run if it is false. For example, this code will turn the LED off if the original condition was not met. The statement can be given more options by adding else-if sections. Each one adds another statement to be checked. Only the blocks in the first section with a true statement will be run. All other sections will be skipped. If none of the statements are true, the blocks in the else section are run. Now let's check out the count loop block. The count loop makes it easier to repeat an action a number of times. To use it, add 2 number blocks to the loop. The first specifies the number to start counting from, and the second specifies what number to count to. For example, the following code does some stuff 3 times. The number I can be referenced from within the loop. This loop will fade an LED on port 1 from off, 0, to fully on at 255. The red I block in the above code is a variable block. Next for the controls, the repeat while loop. Here, the while loop repeats a series of blocks as long as a condition remains true. The following blocks will do some stuff repeatedly as long as the sensor on port 1 has a value greater than 200. Alternatively, clicking the word while and selecting until will make it do some stuff until the condition is true. Last up for the controls is the break out of loop block. This block exits a loop immediately, allowing the code outside the loop to resume. For example, the following count loop will do some stuff 10 times, but if at any time some condition is true, the loop will exit. Clicking breakout and setting it to continue with the next iteration will make the block only skip the current repetition. Complex statements. Click the plus sign to select an operation and then attach number blocks or sensor blocks to perform a calculation. The blocks here subtract 500 from the value of the sensor on port 1 and then divide the result by 2. Note, any operation involving 2 integer or non-decimal values will output an integer value. For example, 8 divided by 3 will output 2 instead of 2.6667. Now let's move on to our final category for this video, the logic blocks. The comparison block compares 2 numbers and outputs either true or false. It has 6 modes: equals, does not equal, is less than or equal to, is greater than, and is greater than or equal to. It is common to connect a sensor block to the first slot and a number block to the second. For example, this code checks to see if a sensor on port 1 has a reading greater than 200. If so, it turns on an LED. Next, let's take a look at the AND/OR block. The AND block outputs true only if both of its inputs are true. Therefore, the code here is only true if x is between 10 and 20. Click the AND and select OR. This block is true if either or both of the conditions are true. The NOT block simply makes a true value false and a false value true. Note that the code segments here are identical. Repeating while something is not true is the same as waiting until it is true. The null block has no real uses at the moment. In many cases, it behaves like the number 0. And finally, we have the true-false block. This block can be used in place of a conditional. For example, a true loop will continue indefinitely. It can also be used to make a custom procedure return a Boolean value. That completes this quick look at the blocks of Blockly while using the Hummingbird. In the next video, we will be building our first program.